Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. We thank you for joining us today. We're going to continue to dive into the sticking points with the 90 something percentile of Democratic voters of African American descent to try to claim back that little percentage that we lost from 2020 to 2022. It's very important that we try and deal with facts here as much as possible. We try to deal with facts, and if we can't deal with facts, then we're not going to speak on it. So, with that being said, we've talked about it, and in the past, what it is that we here at Soluble feel like is a major sticking point with Negro voters in America who are amongst the 90 something percentile of Democratic voters, which is, you know, the vast majority of us feel as if the Democratic Party is the party of welfare, the party that promotes entitlements, which definitely leaves a bad taste in the mouth of working class Americans, Negroes in particular here. This is not about playing the race card, but we're dealing with the 90 something percentile to get in hopes of forming a power base within the Democratic Party that will, you know, more than likely ensure that we'll never have to deal with something like a Trump administration or anything that looks like it coming from the right ever again. So that's what it is with the vast majority of Democratic voters, Negroes in particular. It's entitlement programs that we feel like the Democratic Party is pushing, and also gender politics, the LGBTQ community. You know, Democratic voters who are of African American descent feel largely that the Democratic Party is drifting further and further away from God and God's will. Now, I don't, we're not going to try and mix religion and politics here, but that's just what it is when it comes to anything that relates to the LGBTQ community. Marriage equality with men marrying men and women marrying women. That's where we are, you know. And I've stated here plainly and clearly that it's I'm religiously and faithfully insensitive to the subject, but here I live in the country, and we have to get along. We have to try to find a way to live within, you know, the guidelines of humanity that protects and respects all, no matter what race, creed, or color. So, let's dive right into facts and just let's take a deep dive right into it. Entitlement programs, first of all, of the two entitlement programs and gender politics, and anything having to do with the LGBTQ community. Now, welfare goes back to the 1930s, 35 if I'm not mistaken, but somewhere there in the 1930s, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, because of the Great Depression. There were hard times. There were tough times. Businesses were going under. There was little to no work to be found, and it was just tough times all across the country. I'm pretty sure that if you at least have a high school education, you know something about the Great Depression, and it was just tough times. For everybody, everywhere. Men were abandoning their families, abandoning their children, and FDR, you know, with consulting with his what I guess would be his advisors and the people around him, um, with what was going on with the great state of depression in the country. Um, they came up with this assistance for families because as I said, men were abandoning their families, abandoning their children. Now, not to play politics with it, but for the 90 something percentile of African American voters who may drift from midterm to midterm or from presidential election to presidential election when it comes to, feeling as if the Democratic Party is the party that promotes entitlements in the form of welfare, food stamps, handouts. Now, at the time that Roosevelt instituted the welfare program to America during the time of the Great Depression, he was listed as a Democrat. But what you have to understand, and this is very important, the Democrats at that time were the Republicans of the day because the Dixiecrats hadn't jumped ship yet. Harry Truman hadn't succeeded Roosevelt yet to consider integrating the military for the Dixiecrats to jump. So they hadn't jumped yet. So that's an important fact that you must know. Roosevelt was labeled as a Democrat at the time. The Democrats, as we know them then, are the Republicans of today. So, first let's factualize that. So, with that being said, Republicans are conservatives, if you will, a conservative mind state, a conservative party, a conservative way of thinking, introduced welfare into society in the 1930s, albeit it was for a good reason. It was for a good purpose because, as I said, the Great Depression was raging. But Roosevelt also noted that, he was concerned in his writings and his discussions that he didn't want it to carry over to create a state of laziness and slothfulness, and just people just crying woe is me and looking for a handout. There was very little to no work going on in the country at the time. Let's be clear about it. When the Republicans, as we know them today, started welfare under Roosevelt, who was a conservative politician. Look it up. Do your own fact finding. Now, as I said, he was concerned that it would, spill out of control. It would carry over into, when the Great Depression had passed and things began to get better, that people would still want it, be used to it, kind of be like weaning a kid off of a bottle, a baby off of a bottle or something. They still be wanting it or this and that. And lo and behold, that's what we have. Lo and behold, that's what we have. Now, as I said, the Republicans, as we know them today, instituted this program for a good reason. Now, as we know it today, there are jobs everywhere. There are jobs everywhere. We're not in a Great Depression. And so, in looking for the solution, because, it can appear that we're biased because we're staunchly Democrat, but we're looking for a solution at the end of the day to make America better. The approach should be not, pointing the fingers from across political aisles, if you will, but to come up with a common sense solution. Um, you know, and the party that started maybe should spearhead ideals because, as I said, there are jobs everywhere now. We're not in a state of depression, and the system is run amok with fraud. It's run amok with fraud, and on the taxpayer's dime, we're so not getting what we're paying for here. We're creating a state of poverty for families, and we know poverty brings crime, and so Democratic voters of African American descent have every right to be up in arms if the party that they support is a supporter of entitlements in the form of welfare and food stamps when there's careless behavior here. This is, as I said, this is not a situation where there are no jobs or the opportunities have dried up. The economy has tanked. People are jumping out of windows, going broke, taking the plunge, committing suicide because they've lost everything. We're not there. And so, as I said, voters of African American descent, that 90%, they have a right to be upset because it's run amok. As I said, with fraud, irresponsibility. It has created states of whoredom between, women and men in the African American community. Total irresponsibility. I mean, here we are now where, it's a situation where here's a woman, she conceives and gives birth, and she's on her own. Now, a woman's heart is a big ocean, like a big heart of love. And one reasonable in society can see where, you know, this could happen on a first occasion, on a woman's first time out. Here's a man, here's a silver tongued devil. He's saying everything that she wants to hear, and lo and behold, he leaves her high and dry. Now, even though there are jobs out in society today, this is largely what's going on now to increase the welfare rolls and to keep the entitlement programs going. It's carelessness, it's irresponsibility, because as I said, the heart is a big ocean of love that the woman has. But how many times can you get caught up in this situation with a brain? Where along comes a man. He fools you, he charms you, he sweeps you off your feet, and little to know little do you know he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, we'll give you that because you are love. You represent love. That's what God created you for, or created you, with more of a consumption of love in your heart than men. So of course, you can get swept off your feet. You can be deceived. And okay, the entitlement program helps you in that situation. But time after time again, here today, what is morphed into from the days of Roosevelt is, a woman with 3 to 4 children, 3 to 4 different fathers, and this is a situation where she's been deceived, she's been swept off her feet, she's been tricked, she's been put in this situation this many times with no responsibility of her own. I mean, what happened to fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. What happened there? So, I mean, and I think most women can agree with me here. They don't want to be labeled as, um, baby makers of no responsibility, conceivers, breeding contempt. And we support that. We support those women. So, a lot of them wholeheartedly agree with us here at Soluble. But that's what the entitlement program has turned into today. It wrecks families, it produces crime, and it keeps the community stagnant. It keeps it held back because it's a program that basically promotes irresponsibility. That's it in a nutshell. It basically promotes irresponsibility. And we, the taxpayers, the working class Americans, it's on our dime. We work hard every day to promote irresponsibility. We may as well give it to the guy with the sign, waiting at the end of the exit ramp. We may as well give it to him or her. But, at the end of the day, entitlement, if the Democratic Party is supporting entitlements before work, that is definitely a no-no. But we all have to get involved. I mean, we can't be on the sidelines pouting about it. We have to speak truth to power, and make our legislators do their job. Plain and simple. You have to play your part in it. Think of the things you do on an annual basis in America when it comes to sports, annual events that happen all the time, annual holidays that we participate in wholeheartedly. So we have to get the same enthusiasm up to rock the vote every time that it comes up, because we start to look foolish and pitiful, and there's no sympathy, and one cannot blame another racial group for not having no sympathy for a group of people who vote 90 something percentile for a political party in America, and you're still pointing the finger, you're still crying woe is me, and nothing can be further than the truth. You have to get involved in this capitalistic American democracy. You have to get involved, and as I've said, our Democratic elected officials that we put in office, they'll get numb. They'll get used to the fact that, we go out and vote, but we, after that, we don't look at take a wait and see approach. And if we don't see what we like, go ahead and approach it to push them to do their job. So we have to change that. We have to change that. That's what it's going to take to turn the tide when it comes to entitlement programs. We're going to have to look at the facts and deal with it from there. The facts being, why is it still so necessary when there are so many jobs available? Why? And then we're going to have to push the issue from there. We're going to have to push the issue. Maybe there are other things that we may have questions on, in order to find a solution to not promote entitlement programs over jobs. By no means, because and I feel like most of that 90 percentile can understand when I say that this is a program that now has turned into a program that promotes irresponsibility. FDR didn't intend that. He warned against it. Now, as I said, FDR was a conservative. So in that day, even though he was labeled as a Democrat, the parties hadn't switched over yet. The Dixiecrats hadn't jumped ship. So for the Republican Party, and this is not to play politics with the situation, but bring the ideal to the forefront, because it's not good for us as a society. We should be pushing education and jobs. Education and jobs over entitlements. Up with jobs, down with entitlement programs. Because, as I said, it's irresponsibility, and that's what it's producing, creating on a whole. And then the children, the families there, it's a perpetual state of poverty. And poverty breeds crime. It's factual, it's actual. We all know this. Poverty breeds crime. So, in closing on entitlements for tonight, which is one of the sticking points with the 90-something percentile in America of African American descent that votes in the Democratic Party. Our numbers are too large to ever go back. Our numbers are too large to ever have something like anything that resembles a MAGA administration again. But as I've said before, the MAGA administration and the majority surrounding it, whether it be in the House or the Senate before, was a result of not voting. So that's what the majority looks like when you don't vote. And we when we get fed up, when we've had enough of it, the social unrest, the social injustice, then we turn up in large numbers and vote, and so it goes away. But now we're at a point where we want to be proactive. Reaction gets us nowhere. And the proactive thing to do, first of all, the first line of defense in defending yourselves as a 90-something percentile in the Democratic Party from anything that has held you back in the past, that currently gets under your skin now here in the present, we have to push the issue. We have to push the issue, from the greatest to the smallest. We have to push the issue as one block, a 90-something percentile in this party, that when it turns out, it takes the Democratic Party over the top. It takes it over the top. So when we got that 90-something percentile actually voting, we're always over the top. So we're controlling major levels of power in government. And the Republicans understand that. So that's why they reacted the way that they reacted on January the 6th of 2021. They was just incensed that they didn't have the power to keep Donald Trump in, to keep it going. They were incensed. And basically they were mad at your power, which lies in the vote. So we have to continue. And everything counts, from the biggest to the smallest. We have to look around. We have to see everything that's going on. The water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi, where the vast majority of the citizens of Jackson are of African American descent. There's a major water crisis there. We have to look at that. We have to look at, because they're not going to turn up. And we're going to have to, and this is what I'm saying with the Democrats, we're going to have to make them do their job. The temporary assistance for needy families has gone to gymnasium, volleyball gymnasiums, sophisticated things for schools, and misallocated through Republican legislators, through Republican officials. So everything is everything. Everything is everything. And to make sure that you know we're living the American dream without struggle. We're progressing in America. We're gonna have to get active constantly in the political system. When the vote comes up, we have to rock it. It's just like we would any annual event that we attend on a regular basis annually. Football games, Mardi Gras, anything that have to do with holidays. If we're standing in line on the 4th of July, which is a holiday, by the way, that originated out of independence in 1776, we know what that looked like for our ancestors. We know what it looked like. But if we can stand in line, with our grocery carts with ribs, chicken, steaks, what have you, then for that annual event, surely we can get out and vote, because that's where our true power lies, in order to continue to be able to exercise freedoms and enjoy America as we know it. So, in closing, when it comes to entitlement programs, as I said, it started out with the Great Depression, and this is what it's morphed into today. A system that program that promotes irresponsibility. It funds irresponsibility, and in turn, it creates a negative domino effect for families, for communities. For individuals chasing the American dream. It taints it. It strains it. It puts a sour taste into the mouth of individuals who are taught that the American dream is achievable in school, but they know what they look at, the reality, when they leave school. So down with entitlement and up with jobs. Up with jobs. That's what we want in the Democratic Party. And that's what we're going to push for. That's what we're going to promote here at Soluble. To solve it, which is what we're all about, which is to solve it. Finger pointing across the aisles, won't get it. As I said, let it be known, especially for the 90-something percentile in the Democratic Party, where it might be a sticking point. It might causes you to think about leaving the Democratic Party. This was a program started by conservatives. And I say conservative and not Republican because at the time, Roosevelt was labeled a Democrat. He was in the Democratic Party, but the switch hadn't occurred yet. But it was a conservative party. It was a conservative way of thinking as it relates to today. They started it. So, to say they started it, ended it, or had an idea to end it would be great to know. It would be great to know about. But if they haven't, bring something to the table. We don't know if busing mothers away from their children for long periods of time, out into wealthy Caucasian neighborhoods to work and kind of do slave labor. We don't know if that's a great idea for welfare reform, for a mother to be away from her children. It seems counterintuitive or counterproductive or whatever, as to the whole point of creating a strong family. So let's figure it out. But factual welfare program was started under a conservative thinking mind during tough times in America, during hard times, and it's morphed into a program that promotes irresponsibility, which we don't want, we can't tolerate, because of all the things that it brings into our everyday lives. A lot of hardships come away from this program. So down with it. And we're going to be open for ideas on how to bring it about to a gradual close. Whether it takes 10 years to phase it out, 15 years, but it does need to be gradually phased out. And if you're going to be irresponsible in life with conception, then you're going to have to be made to be responsible and take responsibility into your own hands, because our democratic position here at Soluble is that it's not right for Joe taxpayer to take care of children that Joe taxpayer has not brought into this world through conception, for the next person. So that's it. As far as entitlement programs, closing for the night, and we hope that we can create a dialogue here. You know, hopefully we can have some of our fellow Democratic voters to have a light bulb moment based on the information that we're putting out. And you may have ideas, you may have comments. Feel free to chime in. We're going to open up the invite option coming up this sometime this month into the new calendar year. We're going to open up the invite option so you can definitely chime in and give us your opinion. Now, another deep dive into a subject that is definitely a sticking point with the 90 something percentile of Democratic voters who are of African American descent. I had a great conversation early in the early morning hours, um, getting up and going to my retail chain to get things that I needed for a business that I run during the daytime. And I had a great conversation with another brother, and it's just what I thought. He was adamant. He was very vocal that the Democratic Party is getting further and further away from God and God's will. And brother to brother, I understood where he was coming from. I understood where he was coming from. I mean, it is what it is. It's a real serious sticking point. But here's what we have to understand first of all when it comes to gender politics. Marriage equality, the LGBTQ community. This is something that, and we make no excuse for it, but this is something that has went on for a long time in the existence of mankind. And this is not to excuse it. This is not to say that we should let Judeo-Christian values erode or be totally wiped out because of it. But the American position, the American government's position, whether you were Republican, Democrat, or Independent, the American government's position from all I've seen and heard is that you can't legislate morals. Again, I say that when it comes to things of this nature, the American government's position has been that you can't legislate morals. So we can't, play political games with the issue. We have to let the chips fall where they fall, and be able to call a spade here. If neither political party, and it's the position of the government that you can't legislate morals, this plays a big part in the existence and the coming into being of the gay community, the LGBTQ community, marriage equality. So it's not of what political stripe that it comes from, or that supports it, or that is pushing it. It's the position of the American government. You could say it's the American way. You can't legislate morals. Now, as I've said before, we think our position here at Soluble, after we broke it down, and we're hoping to learn more. We're hoping to become better informed. But after breaking it down and really looking at it to try to figure out what's going on here with the Democratic point of view, our position here at Soluble that it appears as though is there for protections that every American is guaranteed under the law, plain and simple, nothing more, nothing less. Not being pushed by Democrats onto mainstream America, and nothing more, nothing less. It's that the Democratic Party is willing to give the gay community equal protection under the law. And how can one argue with that? Now, oftentimes, we've heard and here in the last, just say 20 years, 25 years, the gay community has wanted to equate their battle with society with the civil rights movement. And nothing can be further from the truth. Nothing can be further than the truth. We our people during the civil rights movement were simply marching for equality that they were being denied because of the color of their skin, the race of people that they were. So they were simply marching for equality. Now here you have the gay community. You know, they're marching. They're striving. Their cause is to bring immoral behavior out front into mainstream America, to introduce it into mainstream America. That's two totally different things. We never march to to introduce immoral acts into a mainstream American society. We never did that. So it's two totally different things there. They're not the same. Denying a race of people their rights under the Constitution simply because of their race, simply because of the color of their skin. It's totally different than, you know, what I just said as far as what the LGBTQ community stands for or wants. Now, you know, a while back we read something here at Soluble where, you know, it really kind of took off with gay marriage and marriage equality when, you know, you had two gay lovers and one passed away and the remaining gay lover couldn't have the property of the deceased of his deceased lover, because they weren't married, because they weren't in a legal union. Then this is where part of where it took off from. So, you know, you can't legislate morals. You can't, before it spills over into mainstream America where they want to have the equality of marriage, you can't give them the property of their dead lover. I mean, you know, what gives here? But it's definitely not, you know, an issue that should solely be pushed off on the Democrats as being the party that, you know, is drifting further and further away from God by embracing this. As I've said, the American government's position is that you can't legislate morals. So, so what gives? So what gives? You know, does anything go? Does whatever pass? You know, as long as nobody's getting killed or assaulted or what have you, anything can happen from, you know, that type of thinking. But as I said, it's not, you know, that position, that way of thinking is the position that's been taken by the American government, Republicans or Democrats, both. You know, their position is that you can't legislate morals. So here we are. So here we are. But to, you know, that percentage, that percentile that considers drifting, this is where it's at. This is where it's at when it comes to, you know, marriage equality, the LGBTQ community. You know, the Democratic Party's position is that, you know, they should get equal protection under the law. I mean, would I see a gay person and say I hate them or I can't stand them? No. But the act itself, is it despicable to me? Yes. The act of two men, of course, it's repugnant. But you know, it's in private, so it's pretty much none of my business. I leave it in God's hands. And as I've said, you know, it goes back, you know, to the earth, some of the earliest beginners of mankind. The Apostle Paul talked to the Romans. He talked to the Greeks. You know, about men going after men, leaving off the natural use of the woman. And so this is not a one-up political position of Democrats, by no means. This is mankind doing things that happens with mankind. And you know, what can we do but pray and hope that, you know, things will get better, that there will be a new way of thinking. But to say that it's the Democrats' fault. The Democrats are pushing it. The Democrats have embraced it wholeheartedly, and they're going away from God. Nothing can be further than the truth. The Republicans' position is that you can't legislate morals. There are Republicans who are gay. This is not. This is not just a Democratic thing. You're not gonna. You're not gonna get us sit here and believe here at Soluble that the only gay people in America are Democrats. There's no way. So, as I said, it goes way back. The apostles, the prophets warned against it. They prophesied against it. You know, it's against God. It's against everything that a man should stand for. But it's not of a political strife where one promotes it and one denounces it. This is a position that America finds itself in because America has took the position that you can't legislate morals. So this is why we find ourselves here. Now, let's reach across the should we reach across the aisles? That's what we think the solution should be, is to reach across the aisles and try to, form a more perfect union. I mean, because that's what we're sending our lawmakers to Washington to DC for, to make a more perfect union. You know, you can always build on perfection, especially infallible human beings like we are. We can always build on perfection, striving for it more and more for the sake of the union and everybody in it. And everybody in it. So, that's pretty much where it's at when it comes to the LGBTQ community, gay marriage, um, and anything of the sort. Anything having to do with gender politics, trans, whatever. It is what it is. As I said, um, this is definitely the position that we find ourselves in because we've taken the position that you can't legislate morals. So what can you expect? So I'm reaching out. I'm appealing to any of that 5 to 8 percentile of Democratic stripe of African American descent that thinks about drifting, and we're going to be open to discussion for it throughout the year, because we're looking for a solution here. We want to give you an understanding when it comes to these two sticking points that we know that voters of African American descent who make up the 90 something percentile of the Democratic Party vote, we know that, this is the problem. This is what you wrestle with in your soul, in your thinking, when it comes to voting for the Democratic Party. So, make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. It was conservative thinking that brought about entitlements during the time of the Great Depression, and what is morphed into is there's no finger to point to say it was this party or that party. What is the solution? What is the solution to stop, gradually phase out and end a program that promotes irresponsibility when it comes to starting a family or having a family? What are we going to do about it? And the LGBTQ community, um, this is where we're at. So we have to talk about it. We have to figure it out. You know, but it's been going on. It's been happening. It's in all stripes of society. You know, let's work it out. But by no means, is it to my fellow Democratic voters who may waver because of it, who think that it's all this party's fault and they're embracing it. Nothing can be further than the truth. Nothing can be further than the truth. It's a position that America as a whole, on a whole, has taken. And so this is where you see where there's a breakdown in the family. There's a breakdown in communication between man and woman. There's a breakdown between man, woman, and child. You know, when you take a position that you can't legislate morals, it can have a big domino effect on a lot of things that go on between humans interacting on a daily basis. It can cause things to go, in a negative way. Begin to happen in a negative way, and then therefore, thereby it affects society in a negative way. So, let's let's debate it, and we can all be comfortable and live together in this great big continent we call America. And that's going to do it for the sticking points on this edition. As I said, we're going to continue to discuss it and debate it, and hope to find a solution um, in days, months, years to come, what have you. But we cannot, compromise. We cannot afford to compromise our 90 something percentile that we have. This is a powerful block. This is a powerful voting block. So if you go on the offensive and be proactive, then our goal is to solve a lot of the everyday problems that affect the African American community all across America. And we're letting you know that the beginning of the end starts with the voting process. We've seen over the last several elections, what it can do, how it can improve your daily lives. Um, President Trump never thought about giving a break to kids with college tuition fees. You know, with these high fees that they have and can't find a job, or the college might have lost accreditation. Um, and I'm pretty sure there are some cases where the student may have gotten in over their head, but the bottom line is you're not going to try to find this help. You're not going to get this assistance, and this is not a handout. This is a hand up, so that a person can recuperate and continue to pursue goals, dreams, different jobs. It's not a handout. It's a hand up, by all means. So, as I said, we don't want to compromise the power that we have. We have to take the power that we have and use it in a proactive way. And what's going to be the beginning of the end for problems that we may have faced in the past is to go on the offensive when it comes to rocking the vote every time it comes up. So that does it, for our talking points tonight on entitlements and welfare. So we're in the early days of the new majority, as you all know. Last Friday we had issue day, so we didn't talk politics, but lo and behold, there's a new we finally have a new speaker majority. It took 15 passes, 15 roll calls. You know, Speaker McCarthy sold itself out, sold the House chamber out to the insurrectionist caucus. But we finally have a Speaker of the House. We finally have a Speaker of the House. Now, as I've stated before, and I can't help but to continue to state it, because we have to hold politicians of all political stripes accountable. If President Biden has classified documents tucked away somewhere, and there may be nefarious means behind it, some kind of scheme, some kind of using it to blackmail, or being, if he's being offered a bribe for information, then let the full extent of the law come down on it. This is not about we're staunchly Democrat here, and the Democrats can do no wrong. This is not what this is about. But before the midterms came about, it was all about the economy, inflation, immigration. The border's a mess. We don't have a border anymore. And lo and behold, the first bill drafted out of the gate is a bill, that's introduced in funding cuts to the IRS. What in Sand Hill does the IRS have to do with the border, which, according to Republicans all across the country, is a major problem? Is a major problem. But here we have a Republican House majority, and the first thing out of the gate is drafting a bill that would cut funding at the IRS. This really smells like, let me do what it takes to help my rich corporate friends and my rich corporate donors. That's what it smells like. That's what it feels like. But, immigration, prices, out of control prices. Will this party practice what it preaches? Will it practice what it preaches? Right now, it's unknown. It remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. We here we have California, being washed off the map, being washed away, due in part to the effects of climate change. And this is where the Republicans are at. This is where the Republicans are at. This is not pro-America. This is not, how can it be that of all the problems that we're facing here at home, that we're dealing with here domestically, that the first bill out of the gate is something that defunds the IRS or cuts funding for the IRS? How? We'll let you figure it out. That we're appealing to that 5 to 8 percentile of Democratic voters who drift to think that this is a better power base for you, or a better party for you to form a power base in. Investigations. These investigations are not for what's best for the country. You're not going to tell me that, there's Hunter Biden has something going on that compromises national security. We've seen this movie before, folks. We've seen this movie before. It's a bridge to nowhere. And the only way that we're going to ever move past it and get to the business of the people is to vote these people out. We see it. We see it, starting out the gate. Let's investigate Hunter Biden, and let's investigate the weaponization of the FBI, and meanwhile, here's George Santos, and he's part of the GOP. He's a GOB, a good old boy in the GOP. He can do no wrong. He doesn't need any investigation. This is the low level that the Republicans stoop to. And this is why we have to call it out for what it is. It's not overspending. It's to help America and Americans in America. And the government the government that's what it's there for, to help Americans, give Americans a hand up. But if you listen to the Republican Party, it's overspending. It's spending money we don't have. Now, will this bill that has come out of the gate, that has been drafted to cut funding for the IRS, will it add to the deficit? See, that's what we have to ask ourselves. Because as fiscal conservatives, which is what they say they are, the last thing that they should want to do is add to the deficit, to create a financial burden for their grandchildren and their grandchildren's children. Will this bill add to the deficit? I mean, the IRS has stated that, this will go a long ways into beefing up the staff to process claims, to process claims faster and to prosecute where they have to, where they feel like it's necessary. Excuse me. What problem do the Republicans have with people paying their fair share? The IRS has said that this will be a great hand up for them to make the IRS stronger. In their words, in the IRS's words, they have antiquated equipment, outdated, old. So, of all the problems we're facing here at home, and this is for the Republican voter. This is not necessarily to sway you. to change your mind. But if you're a staunch Republican voter, we respect that. But as we open up the invite button in the days to come, we're asking any Republican voters to come on and explain to the American people through Soluble, because we're trying to solve. We're trying to solve as best we can, to come on and explain how, with the new majority, the first bill that comes out in the draft to go over to the Senate is to cut funding for the IRS. I mean, of course they mentioned it during the run up to the midterms. They mentioned it, and no one ruled it out. But immigration. You would think that it'd be something having to do with immigration, or the prices, the high prices that they ranted and raved about before the midterm. Oh, we're spending money we don't have. Oh, the prices of this. Joe Biden's inflation. This is a Biden economy. This is Bidenomics. And then the first thing out the gate is something that ties the hands of the IRS. Could it be payback because they released Trump's tax returns? We don't know. And that's the troubling thing to my fellow Americans. That's the troubling thing. Oftentimes, we have to wonder, where does the rubber meet the road? Where does the rhetoric meet the road? Because we got the Republican Party saying one thing and doing another. Here's George Santos. Republicans have gutted the office of ethics in the House chamber, on the House floor, or in the House period. They've gutted the ethics department of it, the office of ethics. And here sits George Santos. And it's fine with the Republican Party. They want what's best for America. But it's fine with the Republican Party right now if they leave the American people in a situation where, will the real George Santos please stand up? I mean, for those of you that's old enough to remember the game To Tell the Truth, when you had 3 contestants there and they all had to say they were the same person. Contestant number 1, what is your name? Hi, my name is George Santos. Contestant number 2, what is your name? Hi, my name is George Santos. Contestant number 3, what is your name? Hi, my name is George Santos. And the game is on. That's where we're at. And the Republicans are fine with it. No need to investigate. It'll be handled internally. That's what they tell us. That's what they tell us. They can't come out on the podium before the American people and say that, we have disregarded, we have not accepted George Santos as a representative elect from New York, and we're going to expel him, or whatever the process or procedure is, and we're going to ask it to go back to the state of New York to have a do-over, because we know that he's trying to dress it up with a fancy word, embellishments, but these are just flat out lies. These are flat out fibs. Who is this person? When will the Republican Party tell us? And this is the troubling thing. They want what's best for America. They'll attack the Democrats. But the same thing that happens to a Republican within the party, there's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing. So how serious should we take this? Is this for love of country? Are these the actions of a party that's acting on behalf of country, for love of country? There's no weaponization of the FBI. The FBI has a job to do. And it just so happened that we have the Republican Party that elected a rogue president, a president who smoothed with a foreign adversary on the world stage, smoozing with Vladimir Putin, to discount his own intelligence agencies, to say, it could have been some fat kid on his bed somewhere in Iowa. that tampered with the elections. Took and smoothed up the poop and discounted. You've never seen this before. They use the word unprecedented. You've never seen it. There's no outcry. The president calls the secretary of elections in Georgia, Raffensperger, tells him blatantly tells him he needs what he needs him to do is find, a certain amount of votes. This can't be a tit for tat, and this is not what we're trying to make it here at Soluble. What we're trying to bring to the American people is fairness, equal distribution of um accusation when it's legit, and when it's not, let's govern accordingly. But we have the Republicans, they're looking for things to keep you confused, to keep you upset, to keep you not knowing what to believe. If you're here you have a political party that puts a rogue president in office who undermines our institutions, who seems to always be working undercover, smoozing with foreign adversaries, bribing our foreign allies. And he's all over the place. So it just so happens that the FBI has a job to do. And here's the party that the former president represented. And you have lawmakers all around him who say nothing. So it's not that the FBI is being weaponized against Republicans. It just so happens that the Republicans are the one who are whose activities and actions are calling for all these investigations because they put Trump in office. And this is the domino effect of it. They say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And here's what we have. You have a corrupt president of a conservative Republican stripe. And you have all the president's men. They're Republicans also. So, the investigation has to go wherever the evidence leads. So it's not a weaponization. But here we have the Republicans. Oh, we need to investigate. They're weaponizing. No, it's what your actions are calling for, plain and simple. So we're asking the American people, don't be fooled, don't be misled. Keep your eyes open, keep your eyes on the prize, because that's what this is here, folks. It's no weaponization. It's no weaponization. What it is a system of checks and balances that are kicking in. And as I said, you have a president of a Republican stripe, and all the president's men, who are also Republicans. You don't have a Republican president with Democratic advisors around him, with a Democratic cabinet around him, and the FBI is investigating the president, but none of the Democratic cabinet. That's not what we have here. That would possibly be weaponization against Republicans. That would possibly be it. But this is not the case. It just so happened that the president and all the president's men are Republicans. And, this is the party that introduced this corrupt form of government, this corrupt leader, this very tainted leader. They're the ones who elected him and gambled with the American people's well-being. They're the ones who gambled with a peaceful American society to think that he would, once he got into office, that he would change. And he never did. And he undermined the institutions. He violated the emoluments clause. He should have recused himself from a lot of his business dealings. He had a hotel right in D.C. where it was a hotel. It was a place to be. When you was a foreign leader coming into town looking for favors from America, looking to make deals with America. If you stayed, more likely stayed at the Trump Hotel in D.C., you could probably get what you wanted. So there's no weaponization. There's a lot to look at here, because that's how the former president muddied up the waters. And the ripple effect is flowing towards Republicans. which were all the president's men who were around him. Plain and simple. Plain and simple, folks. There's nothing to see here. We've seen it before. Investigations that are a bridge to nowhere. Only meant to smear, tear you down. And, weaken, the Democrats' chances in 2024. That's what this is. It's a time to govern, but not with the Republicans. It's a time to first stay in campaign mode first and legislate second. Straight out of the gate. Right out of the gate. The first order of business after the speakership is to go after the IRS. This is their rich friends. This is a move for corporate America. That's what this is. Will it add to the deficit? First and foremost, will it add to the deficit, and how much? How much will the fiscal conservatives, if anything, add to the deficit with this bill that they're drafting if it becomes law? How much? Because if you let them tell it, Biden is creating all these programs. He's writing all these things into law, and we don't have the money to pay for them. So, we would hope that they would lead by example. But lo and behold, it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. And, our goal here at Soluble is to solve, is to keep you informed, when it comes to both parties. Neither party should be above our social conscience that, the human spirit in us compels us to promote brotherhood, unity, love. That's what we are as human beings. So, our first and foremost ambition and goal here at Soluble is to hold them accountable, Democrats and Republicans. But that's where we're at now in the early days of the new majority. Out of all the things that's going on in America, the top of the list is not immigration, lo and behold. It's not high prices. It's the IRS. It's the IRS. And you have to ask yourself why. It shouldn't be hard to figure out. And, as I said, ask yourself why and if and how much it will add to the deficit. It remains to be seen, what we have here going forward. But that's it, as far as in the early days of the new majority. Right now, they've drafted a bill here, in IRS weaponization of the FBI should be soon to follow. Investigation after investigation that leads to nowhere. Here you have, the new majority kicking Democrats off of committees. Eric Swalwell, Congressman Swalwell, a veteran, somebody who's went out and fought for the country, but he's being kicked off of a committee. This is partisanship, folks. This is partisanship. And in closing, here's what we've come to realize here at Soluble. It's not that the Democrats are a danger to America. It's not that at all. The problem that the Republicans have with the Democrats is that they're going to level the playing field for all Americans. They're going to include all Americans. They're going to include all Americans of every race, creed, and color, immigrants. They're going to include everybody. And that's what the Republicans have a problem with. That's what they have a problem with. The Democrats are willing to include all Americans and level the playing field for everybody to have an opportunity at the American dream. And the Republicans can't stand that. So what they in turn do is they turn around and they demagogue them and they attack them as anti-American and that they're bringing down America. And by doing that, they can simultaneously continue to build up one segment of America, keep one part of America at the top, and keep the rest of us down. So they've done a pretty good job of pulling the wool over the eyes of the people. But that's what we here at Soluble, that's what we're here for, to expose it and call it out for what it is. And that's it. It's not that the Democrats are a danger to America itself as a country, but the Democrats are for everybody, and the Republicans are not. And so they're going to name call. They're going to use scare tactics. They're going to create sham investigations. And it's all a waste of the taxpayers' time and money. It's a bridge to nowhere. It's a bridge to nowhere. But as I said, we're here to keep you informed, but you do your own research also to, find seek out a set of facts that you're comfortable with, or see if we can all align. So that's going to do it for tonight's broadcast. As I said, we're going to, going forward early into the year, we're going to open up the invite opportunity. We're going to experiment with it here in the coming days, weeks, and we're hoping to bring about, a lively debate, lively discussion on what it takes to keep this 90 percentile, what it means for Democrats in America, African Americans in particular. Because if we rock the vote and we stay proactive, then there's no way that these problems will continue. These societal ills that have dogged us for days, upon weeks, upon centuries, upon decades. If we rock the vote, then we'll eliminate them. Just as sure as we eliminated Trumpism with our vote, we can eliminate. Now we must see that we can eliminate any roadblock, any racial disparity, any situation of police brutality. We can end it by bringing it to the forefront for discussion, open up for serious dialogue, and put our heads together for a solution. That's the goal. That's the goal. So those are the sticking points for this broadcast. When it comes to entitlements and when it comes to gender politics, gay marriage, the LGBTQ community, those are the sticking points. Those are the soluble facts that we feel like we need to keep bringing to the forefront and keep talking about until we bring it to the point where we're at a more perfect union. The early days of the new majority. Here we are. And you have to ask yourself right out of the gate, the IRS slash funding for the IRS, is it deficit friendly? Can this party practice what it preached? Can it investigate its own while it's crossing the aisle to investigate the Democrats? And if it can't investigate its own just as enthusiastically as it investigates the Democrats, you have to ask yourself what's going on here. Are these investigations for the protection and love of country? Are they politically based? Because if there was ever a time to investigate any president and their children, it was the former president. And you didn't hear a single word from Republicans about investigating anything. He had them frightened. He had them intimidated. And meanwhile, they sat on their hands while he undermined all of our institutions, all of our law enforcement institutions, all of our institutions of ethics, of fairness in government. They looked the other way. So, what's going on here? Are these investigations for love of country, or are they just smear tactics? Are there attempts to tear down, the Democratic majority and set them up for failure in 2024? Ask yourself. And in the meantime, we'll continue to fact find, dig for facts, and bring you the latest when it comes to American politics. The sticking points that we as the 90-something percentile have in the Democratic Party, and the daily happenings, the current events that is going on in daily politics. This is Soluble. We thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to continuing the discussion on a weekly basis to bring you the facts. As we see them, as we know them, and to keep you informed as best we can. Because if there's any place, broadcast, podcast that's looking for solutions in America to, political bickerings and not going back to times of divisiveness and hate, is here at Soluble, where we're constantly discussing it to bring about change for a more perfect union. We thank you for joining us tonight. Until we meet again, this is Soluble signing off. God bless and good night. Thank you.